June 3rd, 1986. The Heartbreak Ridge set at Camp Pendleton Marine Base. Young director assistant Marcus Webb was shouting at 3 Korean War veterans who were serving as military consultants, calling them useless old men who don't understand modern filmmaking. What happened next would become legendary in both Hollywood and military circles, not because Clint Eastwood lost his temper, but because his response was so perfectly calculated to teach a lesson about respect that everyone on set would remember it for the rest of their lives. Within 2 hours, Marcus Webb would be removed from the production. Within 2 weeks, he would be unemployable in Hollywood. Within 2 years, he would understand exactly why disrespecting America's veterans was the biggest mistake of his career. This is the story of what happens when arrogance meets experience and why some lessons can only be learned the hard way. Marcus Webb was 26 years old and fresh out of USC Film School when he was hired as second assistant director on Heartbreak Ridge. He had never served in the military, had never been in combat, and had never worked with real veterans before. Marcus was talented but completely arrogant, recalled script supervisor Ferris Webster. He thought his film degree made him smarter than people who had actually lived through the experiences we were trying to portray. The 3 Korean War veterans serving as consultants were Staff Sergeant Joe Martinez, Corporal William Bill Henderson, and Master Sergeant Frank Romano. All 3 had seen combat in Korea, had been decorated for bravery, and had volunteered their time to help make the film authentic. These were heroes, explained military liaison Colonel James Jones. Men who had risked their lives for their country and were now sharing their knowledge to help Hollywood tell military stories correctly. The incident that would end Webb's career began during a scene involving Marine combat tactics. The veteran consultants were explaining proper military procedure to the actors when Webb interrupted impatiently. "Look, gentlemen," Webb said with obvious condescension, "I appreciate your input, but this is 1986, not 1950. Modern audiences don't want to see boring military procedure. They want action and excitement." Staff Sergeant Martinez tried to explain, "Son, these procedures exist because they save lives in combat, son." Webb snapped, "I'm the assistant director here, you're just consultants. And what you're suggesting is going to slow down production and bore audiences." The 3 veterans exchanged glances but remained professional. They had dealt with difficult people before. "Mr. Webb," Corporal Henderson said calmly, "we're just trying to make sure the film shows Marines accurately according to who. You guys fought in a war 60 years ago with completely different weapons and tactics. This is a modern military movie, not a history lesson." That's when Master Sergeant Romano made the mistake of trying to educate Webb about military history. The Korean War was in the 1950s, not 60 years ago, and the tactics we're discussing are still, whatever. Webb cut him off dismissively. "The point is, you're old-school military guys trying to turn an action movie into a documentary. It's not going to work." What Webb said next crossed a line that should never be crossed. "Look, I respect that you guys served your country or whatever, but this is the entertainment business. Nobody cares about your war stories or your outdated procedure. We're here to make a movie that sells tickets, not to listen to a bunch of old soldiers relive their glory days." The film set went completely silent. Every cast and crew member within hearing distance stopped what they were doing and stared at Webb in disbelief. But the most dangerous silence came from Clint Eastwood, who had been watching the entire exchange from about 20 feet away. Clint walked over slowly, his expression unreadable but his presence commanding immediate attention from everyone on set. "Marcus," Clint said quietly, "I want you to repeat what you just said to these gentlemen." Webb, suddenly aware that he had an audience, tried to backtrack. "Mr. Eastwood, I was just explaining that we need to keep the film moving and not get bogged down in no," Clint interrupted, his voice still calm but with unmistakable authority. "I want you to repeat exactly what you said about these men and their service." Webb looked around nervously, realizing that the entire set was watching this confrontation. "I just meant that we need to focus on making entertaining cinema. You said nobody cares about their war stories. You called them old soldiers reliving their glory days. You dismissed their service as or whatever. Is that what you meant?" The precision of Clint's memory and the steel in his voice made it clear that Webb was in serious trouble. "Mr. Eastwood, I think there's been a misunderstanding." "No misunderstanding, Marcus. You disrespected three men who have more honor and courage than you'll ever understand. Now I'm going to give you an education." What Clint did next shocked everyone on set, including the veterans themselves. Clint turned to address the entire cast and crew, speaking loudly enough for everyone to hear. "Everyone stop what you're doing and listen carefully, because you're about to learn something important." The set went completely quiet as Clint continued. "Staff Sergeant Martinez here earned a Bronze Star in Korea for pulling 2 wounded Marines out of enemy fire under a mortar attack. Corporal Henderson received a Purple Heart after being shot 3 times while holding a position that saved his entire unit. Master Sergeant Romano fought in the Chosin Reservoir, one of the most brutal battles in Marine Corps history." Clint paused, letting the weight of these accomplishments sink in. These men didn't come here to relive glory days. They came here to make sure we honor the Marines who didn't come home by telling their story accurately. Then Clint turned back to Webb with an expression that would haunt the young man forever. "Marcus, you just dismissed the service of men who risked everything so that people like you could have the freedom to make movies. You showed profound disrespect to heroes who earned their stripes in combat while you earned your degree in a classroom. Now I'm going to teach you what respect looks like." Clint walked over to Staff Sergeant Martinez and did something that stunned everyone present. He saluted. "Sergeant Martinez, thank you for your service to our country and for helping us make this film authentic." He turned to Corporal Henderson and saluted again. "Corporal Henderson, thank you for your sacrifice and your dedication." Finally, he saluted Master Sergeant Romano. "Master Sergeant, thank you for your courage and for sharing your experience with us." All 3 veterans, deeply moved by this gesture from one of Hollywood's biggest stars, returned the salutes with military precision. Then Clint turned back to Webb, and his voice carried the authority of someone who had spent decades earning respect through action rather than demanding it through position. "Marcus, these men have forgotten more about courage, sacrifice, and leadership than you've ever learned. They've earned the right to be heard, to be respected, and to be treated with the honor they deserve. Instead, you treated them like inconveniences. You dismissed their service as irrelevant. You showed them the kind of disrespect that reveals everything about your character." Webb tried to salvage the situation. "Mr. Eastwood, I apologize if I came across wrong. I have nothing but respect for our military." "No, Marcus, you don't get to apologize your way out of this. You revealed who you really are when you thought nobody important was listening. But I was listening, and everyone else here was listening. And now we all know exactly what kind of person you are." Clint's final judgment was delivered with quiet finality. "You're fired, Marcus. Get your things and leave this set. You don't belong around men like this." Webb was escorted off the set within minutes, his career effectively ended by his own words and attitudes. But Clint wasn't finished teaching lessons about respect. He spent the next hour talking with the 3 veterans, asking about their service, their experiences, and their insights about military life. The entire cast and crew watched as Hollywood's biggest tough guy showed genuine interest in learning from men who had lived the experiences he portrayed on screen. Watching Clint with those veterans was incredible, recalled actor Mario Van Peebles. Here was this legendary movie star treating these men like the heroes they were, asking questions and really listening to their answers. The story of what had happened spread through Hollywood within days. Word got out that Marcus Webb had disrespected Korean War veterans and that Clint had fired him for it, explained entertainment journalist Army Archard. Nobody wanted to hire someone who had shown such poor judgment and lack of character. Webb tried to find work on other productions, but the story of his disrespect toward veterans had made him toxic in an industry that increasingly relied on military cooperation for films. "Hollywood needs good relationships with the military to make war movies," observed producer Jerry Bruckheimer. Nobody wanted to risk those relationships by hiring someone who had insulted veterans. Within 6 months, Webb had left the entertainment industry entirely. He was last known to be working in corporate communications in Ohio, his dreams of directing movies destroyed by his own arrogance and disrespect. Meanwhile, the three Korean War veterans became legends on the Heartbreak Ridge set. After Clint's speech, everyone on that production treated those men like the heroes they were. Recalled actress Marsha Mason, "It set a standard for how military consultants should be respected on every film set." The incident also established a new protocol in Hollywood for working with veteran consultants. The Webb incident became a cautionary tale, explained military liaison coordinator Dale Dye. It showed that disrespecting veterans would have real professional consequences. More importantly, Clint's handling of the situation became a model for how to honor military service in the entertainment industry. Clint showed everyone that respecting veterans isn't just politically correct, it's morally necessary, observed Marine Corps historian Colonel John Hoffman. Years later, Staff Sergeant Martinez reflected on that day at Camp Pendleton. "Clint Eastwood didn't just defend us. He educated everyone there about what service means. He turned a moment of disrespect into a lesson about honor that I'll never forget." That young director thought he was smarter than us because he had a college degree, but Clint showed him that wisdom comes from experience, respect is earned through character, and some things are more important than making movies. June 3, 1986, a young film school graduate thought he knew better than combat veterans who had risked their lives for their country. 2 hours later, his career was over, and everyone on that movie set had learned a lesson about respect that would last a lifetime. Marcus Webb discovered too late that some people's experience matters more than your education, some people's service matters more than your position, and some people's character matters more than your ambition. Clint Eastwood proved that day that real toughness isn't about intimidating people. It's about defending those who deserve respect and teaching lessons that need to be learned. The veterans got the honor they deserved. The young director got the lesson he needed, and everyone else learned why some values are worth fighting for. Even when the fight is just making sure heroes are treated like heroes. Especially then, some people earn respect through their service, others earn respect by respecting service. Clint Eastwood earned both. And Marcus Webb learned why disrespecting either will cost you everything. The lesson was harsh but necessary, and it was taught by someone who understood that real strength means standing up for people who have already proven their strength when it mattered most. In places where courage wasn't just a character trait, it was a matter of life and death, for them, and for the freedom the rest of us enjoy, because of their sacrifice. That's what Marcus Webb never understood. But it's what Clint Eastwood has always known, and why legends defend heroes, always.